It's honestly, in my opinion, it's how you respond. It's how you fix your mistakes. It's how you lift someone up. We're going to make mistakes. Like, there's no reason for me to call a dispatcher and cuss him out because they missed something. My goal is to, hey, we missed this. Like, he's got framers there coming tomorrow morning. Can we get it there today? Trying to find solutions rather than pointing fingers.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales.
Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friends. Welcome to the Construction Leadership Podcast, where we deliver ideas and insights from leaders across the construction industry every week to help you lead more effectively. I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. If you, my friend, are interested in increasing top-line revenue while decreasing risk, that's right, revenue up, risk down. Thought it was impossible? It's not, okay? What do you got to do to learn more? Google Capital One Trade Credit and see if it's a fit for you. I'm excited to bring to you today my conversation with one Mr. Keegan O'Reilly. And if that name sounds overly Germanic, Keegan O'Reilly, you're right. It is. It is German. I believe we fact-checked that. Keegan O'Reilly is an outside sales rep for Vaughan Lumber Company in Atlanta, Georgia. Keegan graduated from Louisiana State University. Mascot? That's right, the Tigers, like 88 other universities in Division I football. And he was a Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies. So what did they study there? Well, they took at all the things in the disciplines and they said, which ones are extra disciplinary? They put them over there to the left and they had Keegan study the ones in the interdisciplinary. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on in there, but it's a good school from what I'm told. So anyway, he got his Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies, graduated in 2009. Did he or did he not work for the LSU Department of Parking, Traffic, and Transportation? And does that still remain on his LinkedIn profile? It does, astoundingly. Therefore, I'm using it. He was a student coordinator for the LSU Department of Parking, Traffic, and Transportation. Attaboy. Way to go. Putting yourself through college. Good for you. He is an all-star, an up-and-comer, someone who I met probably shortly after he started working at Vaughan. And as I believe his manager, the legendary, that's right, he's a legend, Mr. Jim Hershey said, this guy's a diamond in the rough. And it's been really cool to see him grow and flourish and to become, I think, a very disciplined, as you will hear, and confident sales professional who delivers a ton of value to builders all over the Atlanta metro area. So in this episode, we talk about some themes that apply to everyone, about setting realistic expectations, about planning, time management, and balance, and maintaining optimism and positivity when negativity absolutely seems warranted. We talk about all these things and more. You are going to enjoy this conversation, and I will give you a little hint. We've done 300 some of these episodes, and this is the only one that has ever finished with a guest doing this. What is it? Well, this is a teaser, so you got to listen. Anyway, you're going to enjoy it. Please enjoy my conversation with Mr. Keegan O'Reilly of Vaughan Lumber Company. As always, thank you for listening. Mr. Keegan O'Reilly, welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thrilled you're on the show, man. We talked about some questions. We're going to throw those directly out the window. I'm going to throw you something you're not expecting on a little man called Joe Burrow. You're an LSU grad, right? Proud of the national championships, plural, that they've won over the last couple decades. Joe Burrow is a leader. Are there certain leadership principles or things that you have seen him do or heard about or read about that you'd like to emulate?
Yes, 100%. So I read when Joe Burrow first got to LSU, he was beating everyone in sprints. He was the first one there, last one to leave. and then you add his talent in there. He got down in the trenches with the guys. I kind of look at that as getting to know ops, getting to know what really makes our company run. So, yes, Joe Burrow came in there, proved his value to everyone on the team, made them believe, influenced them to do great things. And now they're all in the NFL starting, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you can come in, especially at that level, everybody's got talent, right? The question is, what are the kind of the intangibles? What's the work ethic? What is the attitude? Are you willing to do all the hard work that everybody has to do? Are you carrying pads for your offensive linemen? Now, if you do all that and then you have talent and then they see you throw 18-yard out across the football field, and then they're like, all right, this guy's a dude. And that's what everybody in Cincinnati and Baton Rouge, if I heard, is like, you combine those two things. And like, even as a rookie in Cincinnati, guys were like, I've been in the NFL for 13 years. I'll follow that guy. And that's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah. He makes you believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think great leaders can inspire,
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I don't really like LSU. I like Joe Burrow. So we're gonna move on. Let's carry on. Halfway decent segue though. I want to talk to you about expectations. Your role, the industry at large, over the last couple of years, everyone has had to question how we set decent expectations internally with people we're working with, externally with customers. How do we do that? Maybe tell me, over the last couple of years, what have you learned about setting effective expectations when there's so much uncertainty going on in the world?
Definitely under promise and over deliver. Because when I first started, I did the opposite. I was a yes man. I was like, yeah, I'll get you your takeoff back. When do you need it? Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Oh, here's some lumber for you, but I don't have engineering. I don't have this because, that takes some time. Sorry. So, I've learned to go ahead and be upfront, especially now in this environment, like with people on allocation for EWP, people on allocation for everything, Hardy, whatever. So with the allocation, design time goes out for trust companies. So, design time used to be a week, 2 weeks. Now it can be up to a month for, certain vendors.
Right.
And with Windows too, it's like the first thing I got to do is like, hey, let's get your Windows ordered. Let's get your trusses designed. You're not going to probably have a full takeoff for 3 to 4 weeks. And I lead with that because I don't want them, calling me 2 weeks saying, hey, you told me 2 weeks. Where's my thing? Because I've had that happen in the past, and I can do is apologize because I didn't give realistic expectations.
Yeah. So how do you handle that? Whether it's a builder, residential, commercial, whatever. One thing that I've observed is that while dealers and distributors may have adjusted their schedules and their expectations in order to order and get stuff, oftentimes the builders at the end of the line, I've heard a guy still complaining about, window lead times last week. And I said, I get it. It's crazy. 88-week lead times for Windows is crazy, or whatever the hell it is. But I said, no offense. This started in March of 20. Like we're pushing Q4 for 2022. How have you not adjusted your expectations accordingly? And, we have this relationship where we want to be kind, we want to be thoughtful, we want to say yes, we want to help our customers. But how do you handle that if your customers aren't adequately adjusting their schedules and their expectations in light of what you've told them? How do you handle that?
It's a tough conversation that you have to have. I can't make someone's windows come 3 weeks early. It's out of my control. I can only control the controllables, as they say. So it's one of those things. Do you want to let that time go by, and then when the windows don't show up, tell them? Or do you want to go ahead and nip it in the bud and say, hey, I know 10 weeks is what you say, but they're not. I've let you know the lead time is 13 weeks. I'll do my best, but I can't promise. That's kind of a mantra of mine. It's like, I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to tell somebody I don't know is true. So I'll do my best. And I do. I will do my best to try to make something happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you've said, I think you said it before me, and it was, bad news is not like a fine wine. It does not get better with age. Rather come up right front and say, listen, and I think if you're authentic and you're working hard and you take some common sense steps to prove that you're following up on something, answering questions before they ask, I will do my best. That should be enough, because the honest answer is you can't do more. And the question the customer has is, are you doing your best, or am I just getting some other variation in between? I'm getting nothing and I'm getting the best, the most thoughtful Keegan that I can possibly get.
Yeah. I mean, I'm authentically honest with them as most as I can. When vendors give us price increases, when vendors give us updated times, like, my job is to tell the builder. My job is to communicate that information so they're not caught off guard. They got schedules to meet. We're partners. We're not, that's how I look at my guys. It's like, well, I'm your partner. I'm on your team. How can I help your customer, the end user? How can we do that together?
Yeah. So let's switch the lens here, Keegan, from externally to customers to internally, because if I'm listening and I'm in sales, or I'm listening here and I'm a construction manager on a job site, everyone had to change expectations and how we dealt with our own team. And the worst case, as you've surely heard, maybe at other companies, maybe you experience it at a certain point, within your own team, is that now we have friction, we have frustration, we have emotion internally just about how we're working together. And obviously, if you're fighting with each other, it's hard to be rowing in the same direction. What have you learned about team building and maintaining a culture, which for several years in a row, Brand Vaughan, it's been recognized as a great place to work? That doesn't come from the outside. That comes from you guys in there working in the trenches together. What have you learned about building a strong team throughout all this adversity?
It's been a lot of adversity, but it's been fun. It's something new every day. But, when you have those relationships with ops and you have those relationships with your inside coordinator, I'm only as good as operations, as my coordinator, as, the whole team. One thing that I honestly can't stand, and I've been guilty of it, we've all have, is just quit the finger pointing and let's figure out a solution, man. Like, that's why if I'm really close with the dispatchers, I'm really close with, the managers. If I have a problem, I'm going to call the dispatcher, because, if we take care of each other, I don't have to send an email that is going to get forwarded 32 times up to Jim and Steve, John, or Brad, whoever. So I think it's very important to find a solution rather than finger point, and then lift each other up, man. Show up. I don't like to be just a name on a piece of paper. I like to show up to our locations every once in a while, whether I'm picking up on them or just showing up. I just don't want to be, I like to build relationships with those guys, the ones that are, determining my success. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's all from the bottom up. We all got to work together and stay positive. Very hard, but if you could just laugh or not take yourself so serious, I have found that, that just makes stuff so much better.
Yeah. I think we're going to circle back to that, but I think one thing I'm interested to dig in with you is that more so than most, and I know from conversations you and I have had, in addition to conversations I've had with, your boss, is that you over the past several years have continued to find ways to become more disciplined and more thoughtful about how you manage your time, which in the construction industry, that's what we deal with. We deal with communication and we deal with time, right? In between is all the execution and everything else. But when there's friction, it's, are we communicating well enough? And what's the timeline, right? What's the schedule look like?
Yep.
And I continually struggle with trying to help folks when the obvious solution is you just got to be more intentional. Like, what's the goal? You know what the goal is? How do you manage your time better? And how do you track it? How do you look for insights? That is something I'm sure you've come a long way, and I'm sure you probably wouldn't say you're a finished product, but you've been really disciplined about that. What was the trigger? Was there something where you said, okay, this is now, I'm going to really improve upon this, and made a real dedicated effort to do that?
Well, I would like to thank Brand Vaughan for sending me to the SFW.
Hey.
Not that you need a pat on the back or, ego boost, but I manage my time with this little thing called the weekly game plan. And it's funny, Bradley. I went back and I found it. When was the one last year? What date was the one last year? Was it in the fall?
September 19th, 2021, maybe? Somewhere around there.
Okay, so check it out. My first one is from October 18th of last year, right after the sales conference.
There you go.
And it goes all the way to this. I do it every week. So basically, I use your weekly game plan, and it's about to get a lot more fun because football is going to start, and I do it on a Sunday night. It's just become ritualistic to me is to look at my calendar on a Sunday night, take my trusty weekly game plan, put on my calendar what's on my calendar, and then I got my to-do list and my to-call list, goals for the day. I fill that out. And then that gives me, Sunday night, I'll go back from my emails from the previous week and be like, I need to follow up on that. Or I'll look at the previous week that's not checked off. So I use this as one, it kickstarts me Sunday night. I know a lot of people don't like doing stuff on Sunday, but for me, it's like, okay, it gears me out of the weekend kind of and into what I got to expect for the week. Does this thing change? 1,000%. Because like you said, leading into the questions, things change, and ATOS, all the other stuff.
Yep.
I try to make that as small as possible so I can focus my time on the power curve and increasing wallet share. And prospect.
Yeah, so that's one thing that comes up often. And I think you're talking from the salesman perspective. I would say it doesn't matter. We all have a limited amount of time every week. We have stuff we need to do. And how do we make sure the unimportant and the urgent stuff doesn't distract us from what really needs to get done? Walk me through your mindset when you'd say, hey, I plan out Sunday. It's really important. Helps me get my mind right to hit the ground running. And then will it change? Absolutely. I know it's going to change because some people will say, that's what I'm talking about, Keegan. I don't. I have a couple more beers. I watch Sunday Night Football and I start clean. I don't waste my time like you because if it's going to change, why would you even make it in the first place? Your answer would be what?
Every week, there's a number of tasks that I have to get done, right? Like I've made commitments to get stuff back to people. I've made commitments to do whatever. I'm writing that down. Every day there's a key result. I'm making sure that key result is getting done that day. And I would rather get that done on a Sunday and get my mind right because that's just how I am. Become so ritualistic. I enjoy it. I just enjoy getting ahead, and I don't care if it's going to change.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and by the way, we did a little customization for your template because you came back and you pushed back on me, if you remember, and you're like, I don't know, this isn't working for me. And my initial thought was, well, you're doing it wrong, right? And I remember I pushed back, and then I said on this, I was like, well, all right, let me think about this from a different perspective. Someone is doing their hardest to make this work. They're finding it doesn't. They're coming back, and we made a couple tweaks, and you've been using it. But I think I don't want you to gloss over. Say what you just said again about the key result. So you have a key result per day?
Every day there's a key result. Mine on Monday was to get a certain customer their lumber pricing back.
Okay.
And then get another job. Sometimes I have two key results. I'm not going to lie. Tuesday result was to finish a takeoff for a commercial project.
Okay.
Which takes time.
Yep.
So, I mean, that would be my argument to the people that say, well, it's going to change. I was like, well, my key results are not going to change. I might get distracted that day and get bumped off topic for a little bit, but that's in my head that it needs to get done.
Yeah. I use the same thing. And actually, you were part of mine today. You can't read this here, but up there it was get Keegan questions, which I barely did real late last night, I think. But it's just laying this out and making adjustments. I have a version of that, but the same thing, and actually still SFW myself. And this is what I think is such a small difference between someone being good, maybe being even better than good at their job, and the small discipline that it takes to, I think, to be to become great, right? And it's to say, I know what these are, and I have the discipline every day, have one key result. Maybe there's two. If this is not done today, today wasn't successful, right? And for you to go back, so you're coming up on a year on that, right? And just doing it, just pounding the rock, getting thoughtful. And I still see way too many people. I still see executives that we're coaching that still don't have that discipline. I'm like, that doesn't change. And I don't care where you are in the hierarchy within your organization. If you can get really intentional and learn from when your schedule does deviate, have a key result per day, those are the little things I think can really get you ahead. And especially with all the work that you've been doing, you've made a lot of commitments to a lot of people. You got to have a system to execute on those. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to give your best to them.
Yeah. And that's the thing is with this key result, if I don't hit it, then that's a conversation I'm going to have that might be an uncomfortable one.
Right. That's great. So let me ask you, let's talk about prospecting a little bit, right? There's a whole generation of sales folks that are out there that if they've started in selling sometime after, depends on your region a little bit, somewhere between maybe 2012, 2013 or later.
Yep.
I'm not going to say you've never had to prospect because maybe you weren't given accounts, but every year's been a little bit better, right? We've been on a 10, 12-year bull run, and the last 2 years have been absolutely crazy where top performers, all they had to do was pick up the phone. And I know I'm generalizing. Top performers had to do a lot more than just pick up the phone. But
yeah,
driving new revenue and profitability has not been an issue. Maybe this is some self-talk. Maybe this is advice for other people. Take it any way you want, Keegan. How would you recommend people start preparing for something that many of listeners have never had to do before? How do you do that?
This kind of goes back to that gymism that we talked about earlier. I think it got cut though.
What was your gymism?
My gymism was, I was talking to him today about getting ready for this, what are my parameters, basically. So what he said, I mentioned one thing, and then he was like, he basically said, he went in a roundabout way of saying, if you doubt God, or if you think there's a possibility that God exists, don't wait till you have to pray for your wife or your girlfriend or don't wait till you have to get on your knees. Start that relationship early. Start getting to know them earlier.
Yep.
So being a gymism, he goes, my point is, don't wait until you need it. Like, don't wait until you're desperate. Keep prospecting. Don't stop. Keep the dialogue open. That was my gymism for the day for you.
That is, and for those listening that don't know, Jim Hershey, VP of Sales at Vaughan, and just an extremely thoughtful guy. So smart. And he'll start these stories. I'm like, not sure where this is going. And then you're like, aha, it's a little nugget. And I will jot down notes. I've learned so much from him, but yeah. And I love the word desperate because I think I probably repeated this a few times, but people can smell desperation. And folks who are not looking to transition to prospecting right now, you will reek of desperation soon enough. And I hope I'm wrong. And I hope you and I are a year off on this, and 2023 is just crazy and supply chain's better, but building goes on and we're like, no recession here. I hope to hell I'm wrong. However, for my business, for your business, I'm always prospecting and I'm always sharpening, the saw, being ready for that, because desperation is the result of a lack of prospecting. Like, that is a very specific result that will happen if you're not doing that already.
That's something I'm going to write down. Desperation is a result of lack of prospecting.
It is. Yeah. And I'm like, the time, and this happens way too often. And again, in our industry, it's been a while, but for folks who realize that their pipeline is not full and they kind of look and they're like, December's in a couple months and I have no idea how I'm going to get paid that month. That's going to be not great. By the time you're having that thought, it's too late, because this, the money you're earning this month, my guess is the efforts to get here, That wasn't last month. That wasn't 2 months ago. That was probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 months ago with some of these lead times. So I think it's, again, this the scheduling that we're talking about and the prospecting. We need to start a lot earlier. And I think the industry, sales teams in general, but organizations as a whole, a healthier sense of paranoia, I think would probably be in order.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So you mentioned optimism. We talked about positivity earlier. What have you found works when you're talking to teams, your team, you're talking to customers, and there is more than enough to be negative about? However, that doesn't get us anywhere. And just saying like, oh, turn that frown upside down, buddy. Like that generally doesn't work in construction either. What have you found works to try to keep people positive? And, you referred to it earlier, controlling what you can control. Hell, this is behind me on a banner for a reason. It's not for other people in the podcast. It's for me, to kind of understand I can't control everything. What can I be grateful for? What can I do right now? How have you been able to do that? Or what have you learned from other people?
These whole 2 years have been uncertainty and uncontrollable. And it's been, every supply company has had their struggles, as everyone has. It's honestly, in my opinion, it's how you respond. It's how you fix your mistakes. It's how you lift someone up. We're going to make mistakes. Like, there's no reason for me to call a dispatcher and cuss him out because they missed something. My goal is hey, we missed this. Like, he's got framers there coming tomorrow morning. Can we get it there today? Trying to find solutions rather than pointing fingers is a big mantra of mine too. So that, there's one way. And then just the great thing about Brand Vaughan is that our leaders are available. I can call Steve, Jim, Brad. I can call whoever. They're so available. And look, I'm not perfect. I can get pissed off and call sales and be like, "Can you believe this crap about blah blah blah?" But I've learned to kind of stop doing that. There's no room on this bus for the negativity. It's let's try to find solutions. Let's stay positive. Hey, crap, I had to go run a door. They missed a door. It happens. Just be there to help out. Be there to help your team. I mean, even little things I'm probably rambling, but giving them, buying them pizza on a Friday. Go to the yard, buy some pizza. Just do something like that. That goes a long way. It really does. This is probably me getting a little too deep, but I think Brand Vaughan did a great job with my training program because they started me in inside sales, put me into ops. I was at all the different yards. So that's kind of how I know this goes back to builder expectations. That's kind of how I know if a builder calls me on, right now and wants a first out on a Monday. I mean, I just got to be real with them. I'm like, man, it's Friday at whatever time, 4:30. Those trucks, those first outs were loaded.
Yes.
And I'm not going to call. I'm not going to put it on dispatch to pull a whole frame together. I can probably get it to you second out. Are you okay with that? And usually they are. So yeah, it's just the way that I went through training. It kind of opened my eyes on what, as a salesman, how my actions and requests, what it really requires of ops, because it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody kind of realizes what it takes to pull a frame, to pull a siding package, and do it last minute.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies that I'm familiar with that do a really good job. Barron's in the DC area comes to mind for sure. But I think you're hitting on something really important, regardless of your role, is that even if you have a small amount of exposure, maybe it's a couple weeks, maybe it's a month to different aspects of the business, it doesn't take long for you to realize, in this role, when someone else does this, outside sales or CFO or our top customer or whatever, that makes things pretty crappy around here and puts a lot of stress and frustration, and there's an impact, right? There's dominoes that fall there. Once you have that context, and for you to go through inside sales, that relationship, as you know, is critical, right? What happens in operations, whatever it is, slowing down to get people exposed to that stuff. When you do get in a larger leadership role, which you're in, whether it's formal or informally, You're driving the future growth of the business, and your actions where you could call in if you wanted to and say, hey, need a favor, any way you can make this happen. And now someone has to decide, do we go through hell and work to 8 o'clock, or do we tell Keegan no? And what's that, right? How do you stop that further up the chain and say, I'm going to tell you the right answer. I'm never going to tell you can you remove the backfill around that foundation? You could.
Yeah.
That would suck, right? Could we? We can. But we're already past that point in the schedule. That's what I'm telling you. It can come Monday, but telling people that with confidence, because you're choosing your team over your customer. And for some folks, they struggle with that, but I think you have to.
Yeah. And that's not to say, like, if it's something I screwed up and I forgot to schedule, I still don't think it's going to be a first out. Let's be real.
Probably not,
but I would put a little more effort into, hey, can we get this second out on the first truck back, So that's an earlier second out. And, that just brought up another point, like just admitting you're wrong, like admitting your mistake. Like so many people just don't want to do that. It's like, look, man, I screw up all the time. It's okay. As long as you learn from that and you react correctly, it saves all the BS. Like, okay, I screwed up, no big deal. Like, let's figure out how to fix it. It goes back to the kind of finger pointing kind of stuff that I'm just like, we are all in this together and we're working as a team. Let's try to figure out the best solution to get this problem fixed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it's funny. I've had a few examples over the last several months where I've been working with clients and something has come up and there's finger pointing, and you hear people say like, listen, hey, let's not finger point. And I'll see that they're big fans of Jocko Willink, or they'll weave it into conversation, or it'll be on the wall, or they'll have one of his books. And I'm like, hey, his first major book was really about no matter what happens, good or bad, it is the responsibility of the leader to own that. Whatever happens, it doesn't matter what it is. And they'll say, I know, I totally agree, but we got to talk to Keegan. He really screwed this up. And I'm like, we need to revisit point 1 from Jocko Willink. Like, it is the leader's responsibility to take ownership of that problem, right? And then figuring out how many layers maybe were in between that and the decision, but still on you. It's always on the leader. And I think if we all kind of take that approach to some degree, how we interact with each other and the emotion and the energy that gets expended to get to that point is significantly reduced. All right, Keegan, I'm watching the time. It is late on a Friday. I appreciate you making time. I enjoyed this chat. Few questions. I got 3 more questions to go here. 2 of them are going to be similar. I'm looking for your favorite movies of all time. 2 categories. Category number 1, favorite sales movie of all time is what?
This is a total cop-out, but it's my generation, and I've seen it 1,000 times. This is Why I Suck.
It should be. It's an absolute classic. By the way, that movie holds up really well. I watched that with my 15-year-old and my 10-year-old, both boys, and they were cracking up, doubling over, because some of the movies that I loved, I thought they would love, they don't hold up really well. And they're too slow, and the kids zone out and they pick up an iPad and it's over. But yeah. Tommy Boy, they were laughing their heads off, which was great. That gave me a lot of confidence in the future generations we're developing here.
Yeah. And think about it. How did Tommy Callahan get those meetings with those decision makers? Is it because of the Callahan name? Right? I mean, something you got to think about. Because that's something we face in prospecting, is like, how do we get in front of the decision makers?
Yes. Cool. What about leadership in general? All right. So we're backing out. Favorite leadership movie of all time?
I had to go back and forth. I still don't know. Either William Wallace or Maximus Decimus Meridius. Probably Braveheart.
Braveheart or Gladiator. That's pretty strong. It's funny. Braveheart came on like TNT a couple weeks ago, like on a Sunday, and the boys were about to put him to bed. School was still in, and it started on. I was like, boys, sit down. It's great. It's a TNT version. It was the beginning, right when he starts the revolt. And I'm like, hey, it's TNT. They can't be too gory. And a few heads got removed from shoulders. And I'm like, all right, even the TNT version's pretty intense. But I told my 15-year-old, I'm like, we'll have to schedule time, you and me, to watch The Real Thing, because I agree. That's a fantastic leadership movie for sure. All right, last question for you. We're gonna bring this arc all the way back to where we started.
Okay.
Behind you there, you got guitars. You played LSU, a couple garage bands. My son plays the French horn and played since what, 6th grade or so. And he's just, we often talk about like, dude, it's just hours. It's just practice. It's put in the time and you're just going to get better. And if you do it day after day after day, you're shocked about where you can get. What have you learned from playing a musical instrument, playing the guitar from when you're young through college? What sort of lessons do you think you've acquired from that?
You're never too old to keep learning. I took my first guitar lesson probably 6 months ago. And I've been playing guitar since I was in like 7th grade.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I took my first lesson because I was like, I want to get better at soloing. And lo and behold, this guy's hooking me up and just, I can kind of shred some face now. You're going to get out what you put in with anything, but, especially with sales. If I'm not putting in my time, I'm not getting anything out.
Dude, I love that. And I just think that idea of just always getting better, there's always something I can learn. And even if it's something like in sales, you're still dealing with people. And people are tricky, they're illogical, they're emotional, they're irrational. Every now and then, they're entirely logical, and that'll catch you off guard. So this idea of constantly be learning about yourself and how you work with other people is something that's really valuable. And I think, even for you, who's put in, surely thousands of hours on the guitar to know that, hey, I can get better and I can do this. So, all right, here, audience, this is what you're going to listen to on the exit. This is how strong I believe in you, Keegan. Is did you ever listen to Mark Maron, WTF, the WTF podcast at all?
Yeah.
He's awesome. He always, on the outro, he always plays a little guitar riff. So that's what I'm asking for you. I normally just thank my guests and I don't hold them accountable for everything. For you, you already got a good mic. We know you got a mic. I want you to give us the Keegan O'Reilly. I'm looking for like 24, 29 seconds. Jam out a little bit. Shred some face. Let's share it with the audience. You can't say no, so you have to say yes. That's how we're going to do it. You in?
Do I have a choice?
Nope. Let's do it.
Okay.
Hey, putting you on the spot. We're going to close out. Keegan O'Reilly.
I know. My hands are shaking playing guitar for people.
Dude, appreciate your friendship. Appreciate you coming on the show. This is a lot of fun. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. It means a lot.
All right, then. How did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Keegan O'Reilly. And you didn't see that coming, did you? You didn't see the guitar solo. Never had a guitar solo finish from a guest on the show. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's another 300 episodes. Actually, it's not. Someone's going to want to, show up Keegan and do something a lot cooler. And I will absolutely let them do that. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. Again, if you're interested in growing top-line revenue while decreasing risk by leveraging a state-of-the-art digital platform that is easy to customize for you and your customers to make it easy for them to buy from you, my friend, would be interested in Capital One Trade Credit. Now, if you got value from this episode with my friend Keegan O'Reilly, please do two things. Number one, recommend this show, the Construction Leadership Podcast, to your friends. The people in your network look to leaders like you for signals on where to invest their limited time and attention. And if you have 30 seconds and could go and leave us a review, those mean more to us than you know. We love seeing the comments and we love seeing this grow by friends like you who are listening and passing on this by word of mouth. Last but not least, on our brand new website, BradleyHartmanandCo.com, we have a free tools page. Now it's kind of hidden, but it's hidden for a reason. If you sign up for our newsletter, you can go and download. Right now, we've probably got about 8 or 9 tools. We're going to be loading more in every week as we pull those tools off our old website and add them in. The one we've gotten the most feedback on has been our weekly game plan. It is the planning tool that I use each and every week to plan my week, my day, and go and to make sure it is as efficient and thoughtful as possible. Not always easy, but it's a struggle, right? And this is one of the themes that we talked about here today with Keegan O'Reilly. So if you go there, if you subscribe to our newsletter, you will get automatic access to our tools. It's all free once you get in. And if you ever find that our newsletter does not deliver when it comes twice each month and is not worth your time and attention, you can unsubscribe with one click. But I'm going to tell you this, I work my ass off to make sure it is worth your time and attention, and you are entertained and you leave with an insight. So that's the play. Sign up for the newsletter, get the free tools. All right, my friends, that's enough. I think we're done here. We're going to close out like we always do with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.